about turnout, the time per day that your horse spends in the pasture. We are trying at our farm to let them out as much as we can, and in groups and on grass. I think it's important both mentally and physically for each horse. And we turn the horses out in fields from the very first day of birth. Our show horses go outside every day in pasture, on grass, in smaller groups. And with the broodmares and the young horses, we let them out in mixed groups as big as possible, depending on the size of pasture. So we actually mix yearlings, 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, broodmares with babies to keep it as natural as we can. And all the young horses, they learn from the older. It's common to divide the horses into age groups. So you have yearlings alone in a group, for example. We prefer not, because they have nobody to learn from. And I think younger horses should always be with the older ones to learn about being a horse. The first weeks of a foal's life, we turn the horses out a couple of hours per day, sometimes twice, depending on the weather. When the babies are really young, they don't stay very long outside, because if they lie down on wet ground, they might be sick, and we don't want that. But we try to let them out that they can really run in big space enough for as long as possible every day, because it has to do with development of heart, lungs, feet, tendons, muscles, skeleton, bones. We try to turn our horses out from very early age, as long and as much as possible, and in as big paddocks as we possibly can. Because I don't like young horses to race around in small areas. And we try to let them out for as long periods as we can. When it's wet at the start of the year and cold, we let the babies, the young newborn babies, they stay maybe 1 or 2 hours outside, but we always take them in before it's getting too long, so that they want to lie down in the cold and the wet. Because we don't want the babies sick. But I think it's really important for young horses to spend as much time outside as possible. Their legs are straightening, because sometimes they are not totally straight at birth and they are wobbly. So they become strong faster. And they just develop lungs, heart, tendons, bones, ligaments, muscles in the way a horse should, because they are made to move. So to us it's one of the main parts of keeping horses, to keep them outdoors. Our show horses also go each and every day out. If it's rainy or if it's cold, we cover them with blankets so that they keep good in coat. But each and every day they get to be outside in groups, not alone. And I think when horses grow up in groups and they learn horse language, it's never a problem to keep them in groups. So we try also to mix ages. The broodmares go together with yearlings, 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds, so that everyone learns horse language and they grow up in a natural way. And at our farm, in the first few weeks of a horse's life, he's out a couple of hours. He comes in. We handle the babies quite a lot, so he learns halter, lifting the legs, loving people, getting used to many new impressions. And by the time he's 2-3 weeks, he may stay out the whole day with his mother, together with a group of other horses. And once the foal is about 6-8 weeks old, it's ideal if they can stay outside. That the foals can move as much as possible when they want, and that the mares stay in condition too. Because if you have a group of mares and babies in a big field, they will always make a few runs per day. And I think it's just healthy also for their mind. We take a lot of stress behaviors away by just turning the horses out in fields. And if you need to set up your own farm and you can choose. It's always better, in my opinion, few paddocks but big than many paddocks small, and let the horses in groups, not alone. They're not made to be alone because they're herd animals.
Turnout. Although it is seen as common practice, it is not recommended to divide your horses into age groups. Physical activity is extremely important when it comes to the horse's cardiovascular, muscular, skeletal, and respiratory development. Avoid allowing the foals to lay down on wet surfaces for long periods of time, since this may cause them to fall ill.
In the summer, when horses are out much more, flies is a common and big problem. Mosquitoes, horse flies, elk flies, wasps, all kinds of flies. And we do two different things at our farm to help the horses and protect them. There are many fly sprays and many products you can use, and it's often written 8 hours or 8 days or many days or 1 month. Most of them last for 8 minutes max, and especially when it's warm. But we have found a few pour-on products that we put on the horses and that we put about once a month. We get this from our vet. It's called Paddock. And what we do in the pasture, we're pouring on around 40 milliliters. We take in a little plastic syringe and we pour it on from the neck all the way over the back and to the tail. And this goes into the skin and it helps the horse for a couple of weeks. And we just keep an eye on the horses. When we see they start to swish more with their tail and be more annoyed, then we repeat. Only some horses can be sensitive to this product. We never had it. But when you never used it, it's good to pour just a little piece, maybe under the mane, to see that you have no reaction. And if you have no reaction, you can pour it on. And the second thing we do is to use a fly blanket. So that's like a net blanket that protects the whole horse. So it's actually not warming, it's a very light blanket. And this is covering the horse from ear to tail. And that is of course beating any spray or pour on, because the flies can simply not reach the horse at all. So they can wear this day and night. And you even have these blankets that have a belly piece, because many flies, they go under and they bite where the horses can't reach. This is unbeatable when it comes to protection. The only thing with these is they're not super cheap either. And when the horses go and scratch each other or argue, they rip them open. So either you need to be good at stitching, or you need to most probably buy a new one at least once a season. But these two are the most efficient ways for us to protect against the flies.
Bugs. There are a multitude of countermeasures to be used when it comes to protecting your horses from harmful insects. The most effective way to protect them is to use a fly blanket or an efficient spray.
Today we're going to talk about fencing and size of paddocks. At our farm we try to use as much space as we can for horses turnout. The horses that are not in show training, they stay in enormous pastures of many hectares. And our show horses, they also go each and every day outside. So they spend 5-6 hours in a paddock. And in a size like this, it's about 30 by 50 meters. We keep 2 horses together. You can maybe put a couple of more horses, but you need to make sure that they're good friends, because when they start to bully one horse that is a little weaker, it's not so much space in such a paddock for one softer horse to escape or get away. What we also do is to cut the corners, so we don't have 90 degrees corners. we soften every corner of our paddock, because when horses run, they cannot run into a corner and get chased by other horses. They tend to turn when the corner is softened. So this is of importance. We also do not turn out on sand. We always keep them on grass. Our show horses go on short grass, so we cut these pastures or paddocks. But I like them to have something to do and not be bored. So these fillies, they spend 5-6 hours per day out, grazing, playing, being just free and not thinking about humans. When you put horses out in sand paddocks, they tend to be bored. They stand still more, and some even eat sand. So you can have risk for both sand colic and other problems. So this is for me a proper size of half-day turnout paddock. The bigger the better. And when I have a certain amount of land, I try maybe to put fewer but bigger paddocks than more and smaller size paddocks. And I prefer to have more horses together than to have small paddocks with only 1 or 2. We actually never have horses alone except the stallions. But they go wall to wall with other horses, so they can smell each other under the fence. So that's their chance of socializing as well. We also turn our stallions out every day on grass, and they go wall to wall with mares and fillies. And they can smell the mare over or under the fence. We have wood fence with electricity on the inside, so they cannot really push the fence. But this makes our stallions really at peace. They are used to mares and other horses, and they don't see them only when it's time to breed. So they know very well the signs of a mare not in heat, and they learn very fast not to care about her, so they go to graze and eat grass and check around. So this is for us an important part of stallion management, to let them out every day, very close to other horses.
Paddocks. Daily turnout is the most effective way to have a stress-free horse. Even show horses should have a daily turnout into a stimulating environment. The size of the paddock is important, as in a situation of overpopulation, you might encounter behavioral problems. It is advisable to avoid constructing paddocks with 90-degree angles. In the event where one or more of the horses bully another horse, it is much easier for the horse in danger to evade a traumatic situation by being able to flee without getting stuck in a corner.
Talking about fencing, to me the ideal fence is wood, because it's visible and it lasts for a long time and it's a steady fence. So we use wood fence as far as we can. We protect the wood fence against the horses, because Arabian horses are beavers. They love to eat wood. So we always put electricity on the inside of the fence. So it's more about protecting the fence from being eaten than protecting the horses from running out. And also the height of fence. You often see fences that are too low, and when the horses run full speed in a group and the first one has no time to stop in front of the fence, if it's too low, horses tend to storm the fence and realizing too late they need to stop. So we try to put our fence around 130 to 140 centimeters, and we always want the gate to be the strongest point of the fence, because here's where horses go out and in. So when they run full speed and they storm to somewhere, often it's direction gate. So if you have a steady fence and then you just have a wire gate, mostly they will slip out of the gate and run through. So we make sure always to have good gates, and now this is high enough, but preferably even a little higher than the fence itself, just for security. Now, you cannot always have wooden fence because it's expensive. We try to put little by little renew our wooden fence, but you can also just put electric fence. The most important with electric is that the horse can see the fence well. especially when you have groups of broodmares and young horses. They run a lot and they play a lot. We have this is what we use, electric band that the horses can see. You also have electric rope. I'm not very fond of that because if a horse would run through or have an accident, the rope will not break. Instead, it can cut in to the horse. So you can have horrific injuries. And these are calculated to break. If a horse with full power comes through, they break off. So we also use this instead. You can also use a thread, which is fine. The horses learn to avoid the thread when you have electricity, but it's less visible. So if you always keep the same horses, no new arrivals, no youngsters, no stallions, it can work very well with just a thread because the horses learn. But if you have traffic, that new horses come, new foals are born, it's always safer with the fences they can see well. Barbed wire is the last of fences that we use. It's even many insurance companies, they do not insure for injuries related to barbed wire fence. So this we never use, and I really advise never to use that. Also inside the pasture we try not to have for example the water too close to the gate, because it's always traffic close to the gate and traffic close to the water. And if horses argue about being first at the water or first coming in, you have two argue points close to each other. So we try to put the water a little further away from the gate, that you have more peace on the two places and not 2 points of argue within the same area.
Fencing. It is recommended to use an electrified wooden fence. Arabian horses tend to gnaw the wooden surfaces, and thus the electrified fence protects the wood against the horses, while the wooden fence protects the horses against unsafe surroundings. Use an adequately high fence while paying attention to the sturdiness of the entire fence and especially to that of the gate. A fence of approximately 1.3 to 1.4 meters in height should suffice. If using electric fencing only, make sure that these fences are always and under all circumstances clearly visible for the horses in order to avoid possible injury. Thanks for watching Lesson 2, The Importance of Daily Turnout. Make sure to protect your horse from harmful insects. Guarantee to your horses as much time outside as possible into a big enough paddock or field. A proper fencing is very important in order to avoid injuries.
Unmatched passion. Those are the words that come to mind when talking about Marieta Salas. Her love for Arabian horses started about 60 years ago and never wavered.
I was 14 when I saw an Arabian horse. I was completely impressed by 11 little mares, all alike. They were Congo daughters. This was in Jerez in Spain.
Year after year, Ses Planes has produced endless gold champions, and some of them became worldwide legends. Marieta is not only an excellent breeder, she is also a dreamer. She dreamt about a world where Arabian horses are seen as life companionship and not simply a means to an end, where everyone will be able to see that the true beauty of an Arabian horse lay in his soul, and not only on their pretty heads.
The first time a foal was born, that is my special moment. Because, okay, when you win prizes it's nice, but it comes and goes. So when you see a foal, a baby born, this is what impresses me, or what I like most about Arabian horse.
Marieta Salas and her ganaderia Ses Planes are proud to offer to the world the second Masterclass of Johanna Ullstrom.